So, good afternoon, those of you who are joining us for the second part of the Global Workplace Wellness Summit. My name is Joyce Odidison, and I want to welcome you back this afternoon. And our first topic on the agenda is going to be on leadership ethics. So, leadership strategies to foster wellness at work. And we're going to have a presentation by Jonas Golson, Ethics with Track the Conversation on Ethics. So Jonassen is Director of Ethical Imperative LLC, teaching professionals how good ethics is good business and the benefits of intellectual diversity. He's a keynote speaker, TEDx presenter, and community rabbi, as well as a repentant hitchhiker. I love that one. Recovered communicator, former newspaper columnist, and retired high school teacher in St. Louis. He's authored hundreds of articles and 6 books applying ancient rabbinic wisdom to the challenges of modern secular world. Do we ever need wisdom in today's society? Please help me welcome Yonasan for this afternoon's presentation to start us out with the last half of our day. Welcome, Yonasan.
Thank you, Joyce. Before we get started, I'd like everyone in participating to take a pen and paper. Pencil works also. Let's be old school about this. And I'd like you to write down very briefly the answer to this question. How would you define the word ethics? Don't overthink it. Whatever comes to your mind first. 1 sentence or less. Just jot that down, then set it to the side. We'll come back to that shortly. Very good. Thank you. All right, let's begin. It's 1993. My wife and I have just taken our first jobs teaching high school in Budapest, Hungary. Only 4 years earlier, the Iron Curtain came down, freedom returned to Eastern Europe, and we've been hired to teach the fundamentals of Jewish law and ethics to Jewish teenagers who've been denied any knowledge whatsoever of their Jewish heritage. By the way, this is not a picture of Budapest. This is a picture of Szentendre. It's a charming little artisans village on the outskirts of Budapest. And over spring break, my wife and I took a dozen 9th and 10th grade girls by train on a day trip to Szentendre. These girls, they were every teacher's dream. They weren't embarrassed to be spending vacation time with their teachers. They were sweet, innocent, wholesome young ladies. At least that's the way we thought of them at the outset of our trip. We spent the day wandering through the village, went in and out of little shops, had a picnic lunch in the park, and at the end of the afternoon, we gathered back at the train station for the return trip to Budapest. It was at that point that several girls approached us and they said, "You don't have to buy us tickets." We said, "Why not?" "Because on the train trip out, the conductor didn't punch our tickets, so we can use the same tickets we went out on back on." "No. You didn't pay for those tickets. You can't use them to ride the train." "Yes, we can, because the conductor didn't punch them. We can use them again." "No. If you use tickets you haven't paid for, you're stealing from the railroad." "Stealing? We're not stealing. He didn't punch our tickets. We can use them again." "No, you can't." "Yes, we can." "No, you can't." "Yes, we can." The more we insisted, the more agitated they became. "You don't understand. He didn't punch our tickets." They finally gave in and let us buy them tickets. After all, it was the school that was paying. But as hard as we tried to convince them of the simple idea of basic honesty, we never were able to get them to understand why there was anything wrong with using a ticket they hadn't paid for to ride the train. The problem was not their English. The problem was their mindset. To their way of thinking, riding a train without paying for a ticket was a victimless crime. A choice without consequences. We know that all choices have consequences. To quote the illustrious professor, Albus Dumbledore, "It is our choices, Harry, far more than our abilities, that show what we truly are." You might even say it is our choices that decide our destiny. When you stand up, you stand out. When you consistently do what's right, you earn the undying trust and loyalty of colleagues and clients. What's more, you inspire them to want to become your partners in building a brighter future. It all comes down to this. Success is the inevitable consequence of doing what's right. That is the 3,000-year-old secret I'm here to share with you. In the next 45 minutes, you're going to discover how to recognize the consequences of all your decisions and how to make the ethical choices that lead to enduring success. Before our time together is finished, you will have crafted an action plan that you can start putting into practice today for achieving enduring prosperity and transforming the quality of your relationships, the productivity of your team, and the profitability of your future. My own journey of discovery began over 35 years ago. I was about to graduate from the University of California. And even though I spent the last 5 years studying the great writers and thinkers, I still felt there was something essential missing from my education. I wasn't going to be able to start a career or a family until I figured out what it was. But if I hadn't found the answers to my questions in college, where was I going to find them? Ring, ring. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I got some news. I've decided what I'm going to do after I graduate. I'm going to go hitchhiking across the United States. That conversation did not go well. But that's what I did. And after half a year hitchhiking cross country, I crossed the Atlantic. I went backpacking across Europe until 1 year later, I found myself in the land of Israel, where through an unlikely series of events, I ended up in a rabbinic college. Now, if you don't know what that is, neither did I. Believe me, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would ever end up a rabbi or even religious. So what was I doing there? Simple. I was tired. For the last year, I'd been living out of a backpack every day and looking for a new place to sleep every night. And the seminary gave me a bed, 3 square meals, and most important, the daily routine that traveling couldn't provide. I figured a month or two recharging my emotional batteries, and then I'd be on my way again, this time off to Kenya and Botswana. Instead, what I found there caught me completely by surprise. 3,000 years of wisdom, generations upon generations of insight into human nature and the human condition that can all be summed up in one word: ethics. What are ethics? That was the question that I posed to you before we began. So if you would, please, I'd like you to type into the chat the answer that you wrote down when we began. If you do that, please, we'll take a look at what you came up with. Going once. Going twice. I hope my volume's on. All right, no takers. Well, maybe that points to the problem. If we're not sure what ethics means, how can we possibly be ethical? Well, I'd like to offer this answer, this simple definition. Ethics is the discipline of recognizing and taking responsibility for the impact our actions have on others. Every day, many times each day, you have a choice to make. And it's the same choice every time for every one of us. It never changes. What is it? It's the choice between doing what you want to do and doing what you ought to do. It's a choice that should be clear and should be easy, but we know how often it's not. That's why I'm here. Because you don't have to leave that choice to chance. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I want to share with you the ancient wisdom I learned so that together we can see how to make the choice to be ethical an easier choice to make. When all of us together do what we ought to do, we create communities that are efficient, energized, and highly productive, where operations work exactly the way they're supposed to, and where every member of the team feels like a proud partner. But when it's every man for himself, organizations limp along unproductively, and work environments turn so toxic that every employee is looking for the quickest way out. That's why we need ethics. And that's what those girls in Hungary were missing. And the scariest part of the story is this: it wasn't their fault. If you're close to my age, you might recognize the name Will Rogers. He was a beloved humorist and columnist who in 1926 took a celebrated trip to Europe to visit the countries that had come into existence after World War I. So he visited the former Soviet Union, which wasn't even a decade old at the time. He visited Mussolini's Italy and the Weimar Republic in Germany before the rise of Adolf Hitler. And when he came back from his trip, everybody wanted to hear what he'd seen, what he'd heard. Tell us your impressions. And Will Rogers said, well, there's good and there's bad. He said, take Russia. In Russia, they got no income tax. But they got no income. And it was no joke. Under the Soviet system, everybody had a job, but you didn't get to pick your job and you didn't get to negotiate your pay. You couldn't put in for a promotion or ask for a raise or transfer to another department or take a second job. And most people got paid enough every month to live on for 2 or 3 weeks. So what do you do when you're trapped in a system that won't let you earn an honest living? Let me tell you a story about a Hungarian soap factory. Hungary was under the Soviet system. Things were much the same there. And in this soap factory, every employee, from top management all the way down, conspired to dilute their soap solution with 3% water. By doing that, they produced 3% more bars of soap than their quota, which they divvied up among themselves and sold on the black market to supplement their income. Of course, that meant that every bar of soap sold lasted only 97% as long as it was supposed to, but who's going to notice that? Is that not the classic example of a victimless crime? And if you would have gone to those employees and you would have said, hey, what you're doing is dishonest. You're stealing from the consumers who are buying those bars of soap. Can you imagine what they would say to you? Stealing? We're not stealing. We're doing what we have to do to survive. And there's no way you would be able to convince them otherwise. But consider this. What happens if you dilute 3% and another 3% and another 3% again and again? How long will it take before your soap solution is nothing but water? So if people will be a little less shy about typing in the chat this time, I'd like to ask you this question. What's an example from the workplace of some behavior that a typical employee might consider a victimless crime? Please type that into the chat box. Taking paper clips home. Yeah. Borrowing from work. Calling in sick when they're not. Personal mental health day, right? Any other ideas? Taking sticky notes, right? Borrowing those work materials. Any other thoughts? How about photocopying for personal stuff? How about online shopping or personal phone calls? How about leaving your unwashed coffee mug in the lunchroom sink? How about not giving credit where credit's due? Gossip? Flattery? Don't otherwise honest employees justify these kind of behaviors by convincing themselves that they aren't hurting anybody else? In some cases, it's clear others are being hurt, but even if they're not, here's the question to ponder. Anytime you catch yourself drifting into a morally gray area, what would it be like if everyone did what I'm about to do? If everyone spends work time on Facebook or online shopping, when will work get done? If employees aren't recognized for their efforts or their contributions, what will motivate them to work hard? If team members have to constantly look over their shoulders, what happens to the cohesion that's essential to an effective team? If there's no accountability, what happens to productivity? And if no one can be trusted to keep their word, how can any organization continue to function? This is the fallacy of victimless crimes, because even if you can't point to a single quantifiable victim, we're all victims, especially the person who perpetrates the crime. The more we convince ourselves that our little crimes aren't hurting anyone else, the more we contribute to the moral bankruptcy of the communities we live in. What happens to a society that becomes morally bankrupt? And what happens to children who grow up in such a society? They become our class of girls in Hungary, who lacked any sensitivity for such concepts as honesty and integrity and the rule of law, and most important, the spirit of the law. And the more unethical the culture around us becomes, the more difficult it is for us to maintain our own standards of ethics. Sometimes it feels like we're in a battle for the survival of our souls. And the truth is we are. Because at every decision point, you have to do battle. And the first and most dangerous enemy in the battle to be ethical is rationalization. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy to rationalize cutting corners and blurring lines. It's easy to rationalize white lies and unkept promises. It's easy to rationalize that all the little crimes we commit are truly victimless. But for all our rationalization, it is inevitable that with every ethical compromise, we dilute the substance of ourselves and the quality of our work. When you dilute your work, you lose confidence in yourself. With every ethical compromise, you can feel your self-respect dissolving away until little by little you come to feel that you aren't worthy, that you have no real contribution to make to the society you live in. When you dilute your work, you dilute your worth. That's why the first secret for being an ethical person is don't dilute your worth. When we dilute our worth, we do more than devalue ourselves. We harm others around because we deprive those around us of the positive contribution that every one of us has the potential to make. That's why you have to make every little decision as if it has giant consequences, because it does. This is not a new idea, and it's not a secret either. It's a principle that's been taught consistently for 3,000 years. King Solomon, described as the wisest of all men, said, "One who digs a pit will fall into it, and one who sets a stone rolling will have it come back on him." Solomon is not teaching us about karma. He's teaching us about the very real impact our actions have on the society we live in. If you dig a pit and I fall into it, I get hurt. But what's likely to happen to my attitude towards society? Am I not likely to say, no one's watching out for me, I'm not watching out for anybody else, so I'll dig a pit, and more people get hurt, and more pits get dug, and you know what happens eventually? You fall into a pit. And it's your fault because you started the whole process. In fact, it's your pit because if not for you, it wouldn't be there. And if you set a stone rolling without regard for who's downhill, it's only a matter of time before society goes downhill and someone uphill sets his stone rolling down on you. And it's like the story of the people in the lifeboat. They're rowing away from the shipwreck when one guy takes out a drill and starts boring a hole in the bottom of the boat. Of course, everybody goes ballistic. What are you doing? You're out of your mind. What? You're drilling a hole in the bottom of our boat. Yeah, well, what's it to you? I'm only drilling it under my seat. Yeah. But we're all in the same boat. We're all members of the same society. And what one person does affects everybody else. This is a mindset. It can't be legislated. It gets us nowhere to talk about what's legal and illegal in compliance laws. They're just the first step. Ethics begins where compliance ends. That's why we need ethics. Because ethics govern the vast gray area between what's legal and what's illegal. Every time you act with integrity, every time you choose to do the right thing, you increase your self-confidence and raise your sense of self-worth. Every memory you create of holding yourself to a higher ethical standard fills you with a sense of well-being and makes it easier for you to raise the bar even higher. According to research, an ethical culture promotes creativity, cooperation, and camaraderie. The mere awareness of trustworthiness and fair play boosts our levels of serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine, all associated with mood elevation. And when others witness fair play from you, it inclines them to believe that everyone around them is playing fair and that they have to play fair themselves. The more ethical you act, the more you contribute to creating a community of conscientious, collaborative, and ethical companions. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think of a time when you did the right thing just because it was the right thing. When did you refuse to dilute your worth? Maybe it was something very small. Maybe it was something no one else even knew about. Now, I'm not going to ask you to write it into the chat box, but what I would like you to do is to write down just a sort of chapter headline, bullet point, some brief, very summary, one-line summary, one-sentence summary on a piece of paper, and sometime later today or tomorrow, I'd like you to write out like a journal entry, give you a homework essay assignment. Write out the story in detail, and I guarantee you, you will feel better when you finish than you did when you started. What I would like you to type into the chat box is how long ago did this memory happen? A year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Just type in the number if you would. No, oh, 3 years. Thank you. Anybody else? 5 years? Good, good. You know, it's common that recent events stay foremost in our minds, but in a case like this, I can guarantee you that this is a memory that you will cherish and take pleasure from the rest of your life. Acting ethically can be the greatest source of our own happiness. On the flip side, there's nothing more depressing than playing over and over again in our minds stories of avoidable mistakes and opportunities missed. We don't have to imagine what those stories sound like. They fill the headlines every day. You remember a couple of years ago when United Airlines was in the headlines? It's hard to forget the video from then, those two burly security guards dragging the bloody doctor off the plane, you remember? But the flight was overbooked. That itself leads into some interesting ethical discussion, but in this case, the gate agent followed protocol, offering up to $800 for any passenger willing to give up his or her seat and take a later flight. But no one wanted the deal. So the gate agent punted. The computer picked a passenger at random. On came security, dragged the doctor off the plane. The video went viral, and United Airlines ended up with the biggest scandal of the year, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and its stock value plummeted $1 billion. In hindsight, isn't it obvious that the gate agent should have offered a few $100 more? But it wasn't her fault. The fault lay with her supervisors, who never instilled in her the confidence that they would back her up if she needed to make an executive decision. Her fear of exceeding her authority cost the airline a fortune. Yeah, it's hard to do the right thing, but it's more dangerous not to. If you calculate the potential cost of not acting when you know you should act and of taking the safer path, or what seems to be the safer path, you'll often find that the right choice is not only the smart choice, it's the only choice. You may not recognize the name Robert Cameron. His story never made national headlines. He was a thoracic surgeon at the Veterans Administration who reported incidents of negligence that were endangering the lives of veteran patients. When no action was taken, he filed his complaint again. 1 month later, despite a long record of outstanding performance ratings, he was fired. Dr. Cameron could have kept his job safe if he would have kept his mouth shut. But But he would later explain that he had to speak up because if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to look veterans in the eye and assure them they were getting the best possible care. In other words, he was more afraid of having the death of American servicemen on his conscience than he was afraid of losing his job. In the end, public opinion pressured the VA to reinstate Dr. Cameron. But how many of us have failed to speak up because we were frightened into silence? Which brings us to the second enemy of ethics, fear. King Solomon says, "One who watches the wind will never plant, and one who looks at the clouds will never harvest." Farmers have good reason to fear the wind and the rain, but they have more reason to fear not doing what they need to do. We've all experienced those two voices arguing inside our heads, haven't we? One voice is warning us, play it safe. And the other voice is urging us, do what's right. It's a scenario that's played out again and again on the stage of human history since the beginning of time. Of course, it's only human to be afraid, but you don't have to let your fear hold you prisoner. This is where fear and rationalization join forces against us, convincing us that crimes of omission aren't really crimes at all. Experience teaches otherwise. Experience teaches us that what you don't do can do you in. The most effective way to combat the fear of taking action is to invoke an even more powerful fear, the fear of doing nothing at all. Which brings us to the second secret for being ethical. Fight fear with fear. Consider the cost to you and others of not taking action when you know you should act. Contemplate being haunted for weeks or months or years by the memory of falling short, selling out, or missing your chance to do what's right. Then, contrast that against a vision of returning from battle to a hero's welcome, even if it's only from the voice of your own conscience. And when you do what's right, you never know who's watching and who might be inspired to join you in the fight. Now, what is it that creates a culture of fear? Remember, culture starts from the top down. So what I'd like you to do is identify one characteristic of a leader that promotes a culture of fear. Not a good thing. One characteristic of a leader that promotes a culture of fear. And please type your answer into the chat. Narcissism. Oh, there's a lot of that around these days on every level. Bullying. Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts? Not listening. Yeah, exactly. Right? Knows all the answers. Insecurity, right? A lot of this stuff comes from the insecurity of leaders. Don't want to admit they don't know something, don't want to ask for help, right? We've heard about that earlier today. Now, here's the really hard question. When you think about these qualities or some of the others that might come to mind, do you recognize any of them in yourself? If we're honest with ourselves, there's a very good chance we do. Which then leads to a more important question: what are we going to do about it? We've already examined how expecting more from ourselves benefits us and those around us. But the impact our actions have on others is not just a matter of psychology or sociology. It's a matter of human physiology. Neurologists tell us that in our brains there's something they call mirror neurons, and they work like this. If I'm eating ice cream and you're watching me, the same neurons that are firing in my brain, giving me pleasure from the ice cream, are firing in your brain. And the only reason you're not getting pleasure is because your taste buds are sending a message to your brain saying, nothing going on here, don't get excited. But they've done tests. They've deadened the sensory receptors, and they've found that they could actually trick the brain into getting pleasure watching someone else get pleasure as if you were getting pleasure yourself. What does that tell us? It tells us that our actions have a measurable effect on those around us that is immediately reflected back on us. When you act in a way that benefits others, you automatically benefit yourself. There's a story about some educational experts who came into a school to test first graders. And so they brought the children out one by one, and they showed them they had a big slide deck. They showed them a number of pictures of everyday objects and asked them if they could recognize them, if they could identify them. And so one little sixth grade boy, they showed him a picture of a traffic signal. And they asked him, what does red mean? He said, red means stop. Very good. What does green mean? Green means go. Excellent. What does yellow mean? Yellow means speed up. Speed up. Yes, whenever my daddy sees a yellow light, he speeds up. Our children are watching us. And we're watching each other. And the way one person acts can impact every person who sees that person. Now, this father, when he is sitting at a red light waiting for it to change, what happens when somebody blasts through trying to make a yellow light going the other direction? It's a pretty good bet that he's cursing the guy out. Oh, that maniac. Who taught him to drive? What's he doing on the road? There's never a cop when you need one. Because this father has fallen victim to the third enemy of ethics, deflection. We see every flaw and every defect in everyone and everything around us, don't we? And our first impulse is to assign blame. But maybe the imperfections we see in others are really just a reflected image of ourselves. And instead of trying to fix everybody else around us, the people we really need to fix are us. And when we start getting busy fixing ourselves, we might discover the people around us don't need us to fix them. King Solomon says, as water reflects one face to another, so too the heart of one person to another. If I don't like what I see in those around me, instead of fixating on what's wrong with them, I should reflect on whether I may need to address those same imperfections in myself. And if I see qualities in others I admire, I should ask myself what steps I'm taking to recreate myself in their image. You know, the impact, the way we mirror one another is right before our eyes. What happens when you smile at another person? Doesn't that person almost always smile back? How does it make you feel? Does it make you want to run off and find somebody else to smile at so you be rewarded with another smile in return? And when you take genuine interest in a colleague or a client, doesn't that increase the likelihood that they will take more interest in you? Won't that make your workplace a more pleasant place to work? Won't the quality of everyone's work automatically improve? This is the value of ethics. According to studies, companies ranked highest for ethics increase in value on average up to 5% faster than companies that aren't. Employees are more engaged, more loyal, more passionate, and show more initiative and more productivity. Workplaces are more pleasant for everyone. It's the ultimate win-win. So this brings us to the third secret for being ethical. Heal thyself. Instead of worrying about how I should try to fix other people, the best way to make the world I live in better is by making myself better. And we can't just blame it on the leaders, because in some sense we are all leaders. So I'd like to ask you, think of a characteristic of a leader that promotes a culture of trust. Last time we asked a culture of fear, now a culture of trust. Type that into the chat box if you would. What characteristic of a leader inspires integrity? You know, the word integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole. A whole person, consistent. Person of their word. Very good. Any other thoughts? Should be quite a few things that could come to mind. Things like empathy. Right? We already talked about listening, inclusivity. Very good. Thank you, Judith. Well, think about these qualities and think about others. And think back to what we talked about, qualities that we might need to improve in ourselves. And let me give you a simple strategy you can use that will take 2 minutes a day. Every morning when you wake up, before you get out of bed, before you look at your phone, ask yourself, what do I need to do today to be a better person than I was yesterday? And every night before you go to sleep, ask yourself, what do I need to do tomorrow to be a better person than I was today? Committing yourself twice a day to becoming a better version of yourself is the most precious gift you can give yourself and give those around you. And when we start taking responsibility for ourselves, there's no limit to how we might affect the world we live in. The Jewish sage Hillel the Elder said, if I am not for myself, who will be? And if I am only for myself, what am I? We're all in this together. We need to be responsible for ourselves, and we need to be responsible for the impact we have on our society and our communities, on our homes and our workplace. I'd like to introduce you to this gentleman. His name is Paul O'Neill. You might recognize his name. He was Treasury Secretary under George W. Bush, but before that, he was the CEO and president of Alcoa, the largest manufacturer of aluminum in the world. They're the ones who produce your soda cans, candy wrappers, and jet engine parts. In the 1970s and 80s, labor costs and fuel prices, energy prices, and sluggish economy conspired to cripple the once unstoppable giant. Smaller, more nimble companies were gobbling up market share. Quality declined, profits fell, layoffs followed, and employee morale cratered. When Paul O'Neill first took the podium as CEO of Alcoa in 1987, he announced his grand plan to save the company by making his number one priority worker safety. The moment he finished speaking, investors virtually stampeded out of the room. One of them called his 20 biggest clients. He said, "The board put some crazy hippie in charge. He's going to kill the company. Sell, sell, sell." He would later describe this as the single worst piece of advice he gave in his entire career, because 1 year later, Alcoa's profits hit an all-time high. How? How did this happen? Well, for one thing, they invested in safer machinery, safer equipment, which was more efficient, but that was only a little piece of the story. When a worker was killed repairing a piece of machinery, within 14 hours, Paul O'Neill ordered an emergency meeting of his executive team, and he told them that they were responsible, and so was he. He ordered daily injury reports from around the world, and on his office computer, he tracked days lost to injury personally. He also ordered that suggestion boxes be placed throughout every plant so that workers could report safety hazards. And when they did, the company spent $3 million in 2 months to fix potential problems. That's when things got really interesting, because employees started offering suggestions not just about safety, but extending across every area of operations. One low-level employee offered a suggestion that doubled profits on aluminum siding. And when he was asked about it, he said he'd had this idea a decade earlier. But it was only when he saw that the company was responding to safety suggestions that he believed that management would take him and his idea seriously. From 1987 to 1999, under the leadership of Paul O'Neill, Alcoa Aluminum increased in market value 900%. And net income increased over 750%. Paul O'Neill proved himself to his employees, and his employees did everything in their power to prove themselves to him. He also understood intuitively what was demonstrated in 2018 in a study by the Trust Edge Leadership Institute that asked employees what they wanted most from a job. And the number one answer they gave: a boss we can trust. And I can tell you from personal experience, it makes all the difference in the world. Let me ask you this. Which would you rather have in charge of your child's school? An educator or a politician? If the answer seems obvious, good luck with that. If you have any experience with school boards, you know that a principal can't just be an educator. He has to be a diplomat. He has to be a negotiator. He has to oversee the educational best interests of students while dealing with the myriad distractions of community politics, kind of like a field surgeon in Vietnam trying to save the life of a patient with a swarm of mosquitoes swirling around his head. I worked in a school like this for 20 years. And the principal I worked for, he was no politician. He was gruff, he was direct, and nobody owned him, which came as an unpleasant surprise to many of the supporters who'd been fawned over by his predecessor. But he was an extraordinary educator. Never once in 20 years did he allow political considerations to influence educational policy. Every decision he made was a matter of principle. And he paid a price. Disgruntled parents who wanted school rules bent or broken for their kids, they pulled their children out of the school. Supporters tried to bully him by withholding donations. For years, the board forced him to work from year to year with no contract and no job security. Was it worth it? Yeah, you tell me. We were a tiny school with no academic admissions requirements whatsoever, and yet year after year, our students' test scores matched those of the most prestigious private schools in the state. Our graduates gained admission to the most venerated Ivy League colleges and the most respected religious seminaries. And the last year we underwent accreditation review, after a solid week of intense investigation, the head of the accreditation committee came to the principal and said, "Rabbi, we just have one question. Why isn't every parent in this city breaking your doors down to get their kids inside your school?" What was it like teaching in this school? It wasn't always easy, but the principal made it worthwhile. Because of him, we weren't just a school. We were a family. At one open house meeting, he was introducing prospective parents to a few of the teachers, describing them and their particular talents and styles. And when he finished, one of the newer teachers came up to him and she had tears in her eyes. She said, "Rabbi, thank you for what you said about me. I worked in my last job for 8 years and never got one word of appreciation." This really was a principle. Whatever we needed to do our jobs better, he bent over backward to get us. If we needed time off for health or family or professional development, he saw we had it. If the school couldn't make payroll, he never took his salary until every single member of the faculty and staff had gotten paid first. And if the board or parents tried to target a particular teacher without just cause, we knew that he always had our backs. And we had his. After several years, he decided he'd had enough. He wasn't going to work without a contract again. And he gave the board an ultimatum. They dug in their heels, tried to call his bluff. The standoff went on until midsummer. That's when the faculty found out what was going on. Without the principal's knowledge, we sent a letter to the board telling them that we would not return to our jobs in the fall unless they gave the principal a standard 3-year contract. And with the exception of one teacher who was out of the country and couldn't be reached, every single member of the faculty signed that letter. You want your people to have your back? It's easy. Be ethical, because when they know you have their backs, they will always have yours. Why would you not want to make the world you live in better for you and for everybody else? The way to start is by reviewing the 3 secrets we learned today. First, don't dilute your worth. You are worthy. Don't give that away and don't sell it at any price. Define yourself as a force for good in the world and you will transform your home, your workplace, and your community. Second, fight fear with fear. Sure, it's hard to stand up and speak out, but that's okay. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing battle with fear. Real heroes, they don't rush in with no thought of the consequences. They know exactly what's at stake, yet they wade into the fray nonetheless. You can be a real hero. And third, heal thyself. The more clearly you visualize the best version of yourself, the more determined you become to be that person. When we apply these 3 principles together, the result is something called ethical affluence. The success that follows inevitably from doing what's right. What does that look like? What does that success look like? Better business, better colleagues, better clients, sure, but so much more than that. Clear conscience. Genuine peace of mind. The knowledge that you've done your best to make the world you live in the best place it can be. We're running a little short on time. I don't want to go over my time. So I don't know. I have one more story to share with you. I don't know if we have time for questions now. If we don't.
Go ahead and share your story, and then we'll take questions. We have a break after.
Okay, well, let's have the questions. I'll finish off with the story.
All right. So you have a question. How do you recommend dealing with leaders whose ethics are questionable? They often resent and undermine colleagues who are ethical. Do you ultimately throw up your hands?
That is a question that comes up quite often. And like many ethical questions, it doesn't have an easy answer. The general answer to that question, or maybe the broader question of how do you deal with unethical people and remain an ethical person, is to form ethical alliances. There is a certain amount of safety in numbers. And one person can get lost, but groups of people are harder to ignore. And when people ally themselves in a common commitment to holding themselves to higher standards, it does create a certain amount of protection from those unscrupulous people out there that sometimes we simply have to deal with.
So true. So I love the concept of ethical alliance. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, there's the businessman Jim Rohn. He has a quote that I just love. He says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And that's really something to think about. And it's true whether you're spending time with people in person or you're spending time with people online or the media that we consume. Our associations influence us in the same way that we influence those around us. And so we need to be choosy. I mean, we should pick friends. And part of the problem with the Facebook generation is the word friend has become almost meaningless. There used to be a time where if you had a close friend, you were rich, and if you had enough close friends to count on one hand, I mean, that was incredibly wealthy. Friend has sort of become achieved junk bond status, and to have good friends, you have to be a good friend.
Yes.
And that means investment. And investment requires effort of time and energy and thought and concern and being worthy of having someone invest in you.
True.
So if you'd like to get in touch, please feel free to email me or look me up through my website, jonasongolson.com, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please connect with me there. Always happy to continue the conversation. I just want to leave you with these final thoughts. It was Mark Twain said, "Always do right. You'll gratify some and astonish the rest."
Yeah, I like that.
People notice what we do. And when we act in a way that inspires those around us, we have no idea how far that influence might extend. It was a summer's day. My daughter Abigail was off at sleepaway camp when a counselor she didn't know came into the bunkhouse looking for another camper. Abigail said she's not here, but we'll tell her you're looking for her. What's your name? The counselor said, Batsheva Sekaresh. Sekaresh is an unusual name. And Abigail knew that she'd heard it before. She thought for a minute, then she remembered. She said, "Are you related to Agi Sekaresh?" The counselor looked at her and said, "I am Agi Sekaresh. Who are you?" "I'm Abigail Goldson." "OMG!" Agi Sekaresh was one of my wife's 8th grade students in Budapest, Hungary. The first day of school, my wife walked into class and there's Agi sitting front and center, and she says, "Mrs. Goldson, there is nothing that you can teach me." My wife loves a challenge. Agi ended up being Abigail's babysitter. Abigail was only 3 years old, and during our time in Hungary, she became like a member of our household. We lost touch after we moved away, but when she graduated high school, she went off to Jewish seminary in Montreal. That's when she stopped using her Hungarian name Agi and started using her Hebrew name Batsheva. Apparently we had taught her something after all.
We never know what we teach.
Yeah, and about a year after that summer camp incident, we got a letter in the mail. It was an invitation to Agi's wedding. And I've heard through the grapevine that she and her husband are counted amongst the most respected members of the Montreal Jewish community. Agi was just one student. Who knows what impact we had on others or how they touched the lives of other people after we were gone.
True.
If you make yourself a model of ethics, there's no telling how far the ripples you send out might go.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let us give Yonasan a big hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was, I just cannot finish raving about the caliber of speakers that we've had at the summit this year, right? Judith, you're shaking your head like it's unbelievable. Every speaker brings us so much, but I love this focus on ethics and how important it is. How do we get ourselves? Is someone from taking advantage of us? Sometimes when you're ethical, people think you're stupid or that they can get away with things. How do you deal with that?
You know, the concept of peer pressure is not something that's limited to the schoolyard.
Nope.
It affects us as adults as well. And, you know, having self-confidence is something that is really the work of a lifetime. And part of it is what we said before, surrounding ourselves with people of quality will remind us that we need to preserve our own quality, and it will protect us. I mean, think about, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I had a video online, post online this week. And, you know, for the most part, I get, you know, if anybody comments, it usually is something that's fairly complimentary. But one comment was, "You have a black man's beard.
Oh,
Why is your beard so untidy? You must be untidy as well."
Hmm.
Am I going to let that bother me? I got way more important things to worry about.
Exactly.
You know, and not all the trolls live online. You know, some of the trolls are in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
But if we create, as we said before, alliances of ethics, if we create communities that are respectful and supportive, then those trolls are going to have nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
They're either going to just be isolated or they're going to get their act together because they don't want to be isolated.
Mm.
You know, we want fast solutions to our problems, and that's just not reality. Difficult problems have long, complicated solutions. But when we look to each other for support and for alliance and for encouragement, that's what community is all about. And that's really the answer. And that's what ethics is, the foundation of relationships. Relationships are the foundation of community, and community is what makes us thrive.
Mm-hmm. It is. It truly is. So there are a couple of comments I want to read. Yonasan, this is from Judith. How do you recommend dealing with leaders? Oh, we answered that question already. So Amelia had a comment, as part of the Facebook generation, I can say for myself that the distinction between friends and the multitude of people that may like or follow on social media are very different things.
Yeah.
And then Judith
And on
says,
that point, if I may, Joyce,
mhm,
as adults, that's a little bit more easy for us. But what young people are going through right now, if anybody hasn't watched the movie The Social Dilemma, really should watch it, because it's terrifying how much harm is caused by this social media, and all the people who created it, they're horrified with themselves. They thought they were providing some wonderful tools for the world, and they just see it's turned into something monstrous, and they don't want their kids to have this stuff. So it's, but we're not immune to it even as adults. So we have to.
no, we're not. We are not. It's not just the kids who are addicted to those to social media, unfortunately. Judith had a comment. True, true. I believe everyone gets what they deserve, no matter how long it takes. Someone who sexually harassed me as a young articling student was eventually disbarred for unethical behavior, right? So it does come around. Yes.
That's Martin Luther King's famous quote that the arc of justice is long.
Yes.
But the universe does tend in that direction. The hard part for us is that we don't want to wait that long.
I know.
And sometimes it can be pretty unpleasant while we're waiting. So
it is. Wow, everyone. Wow. Thank you so much. There's just so many nuggets, so many pieces. And thank you very much for putting your heart into this presentation. It was very well timed. It was, you held our attention and we learned a lot. And for those of us who work in the workplaces as consultants, human resources professional, in the legal realm, whatever realm we are in the workplace, we know, even just employees, we know ethics is such an important aspect. Yonason, just to confirm, you will be sending us one page or something to share with our audience or registrants. Not all our registrants are here right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have actually I think it's a 12-page ebook that sums up 7 principles of ethics that I can provide.
Okay, Amina will be in touch with you for that. So we'll be sending that out next week to everyone who registered to the summit.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yes, enjoy the rest of the summit. Okay, folks, this is our time for a break. We're going to get up, get some water, walk around, get the blood circulating. Don't forget that we are 90% fluid, and when we sit, the fluid sits. When we move and we get up and we walk about, then our circulatory system gets the fluids to start moving and our body stays in flow and we breathe better. So join me. Let us do our circles. Wherever, if you're sitting at your desk, circle, circle, circulate your arms, circle, circle. And then you move them to the front. And we shrug our shoulders, we relax, we take a deep breath, and we're going to get ready for our next presentation, which will come to us. And so we're going to have John Ayo is going to be our next presenter, and I will be going ahead and getting him set up, and he'll be on in a couple of minutes. I'll be reading his bio.
Hi, Joyce.
Attend some meetings. Well, we'll be back. Of course. Okay, welcome, John. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. It's been a busy day.
Always, always, always.
Yes.
Well,
Great
have a good
to
crew
have
here.
you here with us. Yes, so we've all stretched and shrugged our shoulders and take some deep breaths, and we are getting ready for your presentation. So I'm going to take, you have the ability to share your screen. So
let me do that.
So you could do that if you have a presentation. And I'm just going to read John's bio. From travel hell to travel well, inside secrets to stay energized, healthy, and balanced when you travel for business. John is an internationally recognized keynote speaker, wellness expert, sales specialist, and author. He was a successful sales rep that survived in the super stressful technology sector for 19 years, then moved into sales training and meeting planning internationally for 12 years. His book, The Travel Balance, helps people stay energized and balanced while traveling. He has spoken to thousands of people in 26 countries, sharing his secrets to staying sane and healthy in a crazy world. Thank you, John. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Joyce. Well, isn't it interesting how life takes you on a completely different path than you had planned? So how does an engineer, MBA turned IBM sales rep become a natural health doctor, and why do you care? So it started long ago in IBM. I was a sales rep and actually led a team that closed the largest software deal in the history of IBM for over $1 billion. And you would think as the top rep in IBM, I would be feeling fulfilled, but inside my heart, I wasn't. And I'm just praying and asking, what am I supposed to do? And what am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? What's my mission here? I've got all this passion, but I just couldn't find it, and this wasn't it. So the answer was not what I wanted. I got sick, and it made me feel like I couldn't sleep at night. I was in pain. It was miserable. And I did what I knew how to do back then, was go to different doctors. And so thousands of dollars, scans, scopes, tests. And they said, it's all in your head. And so I started studying and going to chiropractors and acupuncturists, and they became my teachers and my friends. And my engineering brain kicked into problem solving on the body, and I got fascinated with the world of natural health. So I went and got a doctorate in natural health. And what I learned along the way, and what's most important for you, is when you have your health, anything is possible. But as we know all too well today, when you don't have your health, nothing else matters anymore. It just doesn't matter how big is your house, what kind of car you have, and all of the stuff in our lives. When you don't feel good, nothing matters anymore. And so that's the focus and the passion that became my teaching for the rest of my life here. And in 2006, I was able to take a different job in IBM in sales training. So I led a 5-day sales class that we did in 26 countries. And I learned the hard way how to stay healthy when you travel. And so I haven't done this presentation in a while, actually, since all of our COVID adventure has begun. But this is what was on the agenda. I want to talk about this, but I'm going to spin it a little bit more toward where we are today as well, because it is the same kind of information that we have about staying healthy. It's just harder when you're traveling to stay healthy than it is when you're sitting at home and not getting on planes as much. So how many people out there are travelers? Type in the chat box if you are or were a traveler. Type in the chat box there. I want to make this an interactive session so you're not just listening to John talk. So I'm going to put Joyce to work in there and give me some feedback from our group. Joyce, do we have some travelers out there? Did I put Joyce? Let me see here. Okay.
Yes, we did. So we had a couple, we had about 3 people was a traveler, yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, these are 5 of the biggest things that I've run into here, and I've added a little bit extra under the stay well category here, but typically I like to talk about these 5 because they usually hit the biggest challenges that we have today. One of the first things I like to talk about, especially with companies and associations and groups, is there's an impact to this. And people go, oh, well, it's business travel, it's just not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal. And unfortunately, it costs a lot of money, right? So we're looking at $662 per trip per person of lost productivity. And one way to think about this is think about when you go to bed at night, hopefully you plug in your phone and then, hang on. And then you have, in the morning you get up and it's like 100% battery and everything's charged and you're ready to go. But when you travel, you lose about 20% of your productivity because of travel stress. So what is that extra 20%? How does that cost you? How does that translate into money? And all of that to say, you know, Joyce, we run into trouble with companies when they look at wellness sometimes, they forget how it impacts the dollars in the business. And it's a huge impact. This is just the travel cost. When you don't feel good at work, what's the impact on your productivity at work and having to retrain and bring somebody in if people leave the company because they're so stressed out? So it's a huge impact on our business. So one of the things that I like to focus on is a preventive mindset. It's so much easier to stay healthy than it is to lose your health and get it back. Ask me how I know. It can be very, very tricky. So what we want to focus on in the traveling space especially is bringing things with you that you might need on the trip. So we're going to talk about some of those things that you'll want to have on hand. So first off, I want to ask you, what is the one personal item besides your cell phone? Like, let's talk about in the healthish realm. What's the one personal item you would never travel without? So type in the chat box, one personal item that you would never want to be without when you're traveling. Joyce, have you been on a plane in the last 6 months?
Not me, John.
Not me. I'm hoping to go next week. I'm hoping to go on vacation because I haven't been in a very long time. So I'm hoping to get on a plane and get out of here, but we'll see how that goes down. So what do we got, Joyce? What do people think?
Well, we see water bottle, we see wallet and passport and snacks.
Good. Okay, perfect. Those are good. We're going to chat about those. You got some good ones in there. Number one, not necessarily in order.
Someone wants cookies on the trip too.
Cookies. We'll talk about that. So noise canceling headphones. What we're going to talk about is the foundation of all wellness is managing this thing called stress. And it's not just the I'm stuck in traffic kind of stress or my job is stressing me out, but all of the stressors that happen to us. So many things happen to us and we can only control so much of our response to them. What we need to do is minimize as much as we can, because as stress goes up, our immune system goes down. That's why this is such a really bad period that we're in right now, because people are stressed out and fearful at a time when you want your immune system high, and those two don't go together very well. So what we want to focus on are the 5 senses. So what are we hearing and smelling and tasting and seeing? And so we're going to first listen. What are we listening to? When you travel, there's all this noise. When you're walking, it used to be when you walked to the airport, there was a lot of noise, and airport and train stations and things like that. So noise canceling headphones takes out that background noise. So if you can listen to peaceful music, even better. But if you're on an airplane, I highly recommend you just put on the noise canceling headphones, just turn them on. And even if you don't have music, just take out that engine noise, which is very stressful on the body. So taking out those frequencies. So I'm going to be talking today a lot about energies and frequencies, because we are way more energetic than biochemical. And so we want to focus on the things that are impacting that energy of our bodies. And this is a big one, is the stress that comes from noise. So that would be a big one, is get some noise canceling headphones. And even if you don't listen to music, put them on, preferably peaceful music. The second one here is water, as somebody mentioned, really key. And if you look at priorities in life, what keeps us alive, number one is you can only go for a few minutes without air. You can go for a few days without water and a few weeks without food. So short of breathing, water is up there. And Joyce mentioned drinking it and moving it around in your body, 2 absolutely key things that you want to focus on. But the thing is, here's what's interesting, is you start to study about water. You know, we are 70–80% made up of water. Every biochemical reaction in our body requires it, and we are chronically dehydrated. This is one of the top causes of jet lag, by the way. So what you want to focus on in this space is not just drinking the water, but how do we get it actually absorbed into the cells of our body? So we have trillions of cells in our body, little balls. And sometimes when we're drinking water, it just goes right through us. So for example, when I speak in Las Vegas, it's very dry because it's the desert. And so people there are constantly drinking water and they're going to the bathroom and it's like a flash flood. You're just drinking and peeing, and but it's not hydrating you. So I did a little homework on this and I found an interesting book called Quench, Q-U-E-N-C-H. And Quench is a book written by an anthropologist and a medical doctor out of New York. And I'm reading this book and it's fascinating. And so I go, you know, because our world today, I went on LinkedIn and I found the anthropologist, Gina Bria, and I texted her on LinkedIn, hey, love what you're doing. And she said, hey, love what you're doing, let's talk. And so we became friends a couple of years ago in this world of promoting hydration. And as an anthropologist, she went and studied the peoples of the desert and said, how are these people staying hydrated? Because they are not carrying bottles of water around. And you find out that it's by eating the plants, eating the cactus is how they hydrate. So what's interesting in this space is we know of 3 phases of water, solid, liquid, and gas. But it turns out there's a fourth phase called structured water. And so Dr. Gerald Pollack is the researcher that really has popularized this. And it's called exclusion zone water, easy water, or structured water. And what's important about that is that's the water that's actually inside the cells of your body. The key is, how do I get that in so I get that hydration? And so one of the best ways to do it is by eating plants, because our friends, the plants, absorb that energy from the sun, and they fill in the nutrients in the water, and in their little plant bodies, they convert into the structured water. One of the ways to convert it in your body is getting in the sun. It helps to convert the water that you're drinking and get it into that form as well. But one of the travel things that I'm kind of known for here is if you'll put about a tablespoon of chia seeds, C-H-I-A, chia seeds in your water, like that bottle that you see in the picture, leave it about 15, 20 minutes or so. Those little chia seeds swell up into little sponges, and they are incredibly hydrating for your body. And they also provide omega-3s and some other proteins. And it's a great way to truly hydrate. You don't need to drink as much. Drinking smoothies, things like that are great as well. So that's number 2. Number 3 is supplements. So the key with the supplements, and again, they are supplementing an already awesome diet, is that you got to have them with you when you're traveling. That's the tricky part, is you can't wait till you're getting sick. You need to make sure that you have these things with you so you can focus on that when you need to. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that and what that means as well, and how we handle that. So if you have any questions at all as I'm going through this, please type in the chat box, and Joyce, just jump in if you see anything of interest. So a quick shout out to my sponsors. I have 2 sponsors, Joyce. I don't know if I told you. They don't pay a lot, but they awesomely support me. And one of them is the sun, and one of them is the earth. And we're going to talk about both of those today, because we are not getting enough of either one of them, and they're kind of sad. So we're going to talk about how that can help with our health, especially when we're traveling. So as well as being chronically dehydrated, we are chronically bad breathers. And I talked about air being the #1 thing we need. We breathe in our chest more often than not. So if I ask you to take a deep breath, for a lot of people, you'll see their chest expand or their shoulders go up. And what we really want to focus on is getting that breath deep in our body. And so you would think about putting your hand a couple inches below your belly button, visualize a balloon in your stomach. And when you take a deep breath, visualize your stomach expanding, that balloon just expanding. And when you do that, it activates this muscle called the diaphragm that's right below your rib cage. And when you do that, it's actually kind of a body hack to activate your vagus nerve. This vagus nerve is one of the longest nerves in the body, and it actually helps put your body into this parasympathetic mode, which is the rest and digest part of our nervous system. We don't get to see it very often anymore because we live in the other side, the sympathetic fight or flight mode, almost 24/7, unfortunately, these days with COVID. And that's why things are so stressful today, because our body doesn't know how to respond. But one of the best things you can do, not only when you're traveling, but today, is deep breathing. So if you can take those deep breaths and actually focus in on a special count of just maybe inhaling to a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4 seconds. And then exhale to a count of 6. And when you're exhaling, if you look at the picture there, it's like you're blowing on something hot, like you're eating pizza. If you'll close your lips, it'll help that exhale to be slower. And the slower exhale is one of the things that activates that parasympathetic. So if you'll just do that for 2 or 3 times, a couple times a day, will really help in a big way to help with your stress levels, and is a big part of the whole reducing stress when we travel. So one of the ways to get in touch with me and to connect, I'm going to get some resources for you. So I'm going to talk about some papers. I put the first chapter of my book in here, my 52 top tips, other goodies that I have from other presentations. So just type in kiwilive.com and then put in the keyword travel, and you'll get access to those. If you want to join my email list, just put a Y. If you don't, put an N. But either way, I encourage you to take a look at that and do it today and access those resources that I put out there for you. So I found myself in my new job at IBM, and wow, I'm leading a class of like 90 people, and I find myself laying on the floor of a conference room, and I'm looking up at the ceiling, And I felt horrible. I was wide awake. I was sleepy. I was disoriented. I didn't know what I was. But this was John's introduction to jet lag. I had a class of 90 people sitting in the room next door, and I had to get up and function, and it wasn't easy. And from that point forward, I have never taken jet lag for granted. I was in South Africa at the time, and so that's a long haul from Dallas. And when you flip the world like that on an 11 or 12 hour time zone flip, it's going to get to you. But now I figured out ways to deal with that. And so I can travel most places and sink into their time zone pretty quick. It's not ideal. Our bodies just aren't designed to do that. And so these tricks aren't meant to be tricky for long, right? You can do them every now and then, but we really need to respect and take care of our body. Just a quick pause in here, Joyce. Any questions from anyone?
No, it says, can you drop the link here in the chat? But those will be available after. You can do that. And we'll be getting John to give us some freebies for you guys. All the speakers were recommended that they do that. So you guys can, we'll get that to you.
Okay. Or if you want to type in the chat, it's Kiwi, Kiwilive, kiwilive.com, and then travel is the keyword. So let's talk about ways to balance jet lag. So get local quick. So if I'm flying to Europe from Texas, I usually have to go through London. We'll just say, well, it's opened up a little bit more, but it used to be only through London. So when I'd leave Dallas and head to London, usually it's about a 6 p.m., 7 p.m. flight out of Dallas, gets in about 7 a.m. the next morning, about a 6-7 hour time zone difference. So when you get on the, in this case, it's 6 hours, if you see on the screen here. When you see those little screens on the plane, don't look at the time in Dallas anymore. As soon as I step on that plane, the moment my foot hits that plane on the drawbridge, I am now in London. And so I focus exclusively on London time because that's where I am. Don't look back. So when you see the screen, don't even look at the Dallas time. I wonder what's going on back home. You're not there. Get your mindset focused as soon as you get on the plane and think about that. So you're getting on the plane at 7 p.m., which is like 1 a.m. London time. Would you normally eat dinner then? Maybe if you can, avoid or eat a very light dinner and try and get to sleep, or at least close your eyes. I don't know how many of you can sleep on a plane. It's blessed if you can. I haven't been able to yet, but I'm working on it. But at the very least, go into what I call suspended animation, where you close your eyes, put on your noise canceling headphones, eye mask, and at least just rest until the next morning. So just acknowledge the time zone that you're in and shift as fast as you can. The next one is staying awake until 9 p.m. So when you get there, I mean, this is one of the harder ones, going to Europe, because you land in at 7 a.m. and you didn't sleep all that well potentially. And then you get on the plane or you get on the ground and it's like, oh my God, I got a whole day in front of me. You've got to stay awake. If you can get to that hotel room before 9 a.m., then you may be able to sleep for like an hour, but you've got to get up, and that's hard. Sometimes if you didn't sleep on the plane, then you want to sleep longer than that. But you got to sleep for like only an hour in the morning. Ideally, you just power through. And what you do is exercise primarily. Exercise, drink coffee, talk to people, do whatever you need to do, but stay awake till 9 those first 2 nights. And that will help sync you, one of the things that will help sync you into that time zone. So if it's like 6 p.m. and you're like, I'm really sleepy, I'm just going to go back to my room and watch a movie. You're not going to watch a movie. You're going to go to sleep. So stay out and about until 8:30 and then go to your room. Then you can take a shower, and we're going to talk about sleeping in a hotel room. So even more water. Remember I mentioned the hydration thing. We are so chronically dehydrated, and this is a huge part of jet lag. So when you get on that airplane, you have to realize that it is incredibly dehydrating on that little metal tube. So we're flying in this metal tube at 30,000 feet with Wi-Fi bouncing around. Not the most friendly place for our little bodies to be in. So what you want to focus on is at least I drink 1 glass, 8 ounces of water for every hour you're in the air as a target. Preferably you got your chia seeds in there. Are you going to be going to the bathroom more? Yes, you're going to be going to the bathroom more, which is a good thing because you've got to get up and move around at least once an hour. Can't just sit in your chair. So I see people on these long 9-10 hour flights and they're just sitting there and they never get up, they don't drink, and they're eating the airplane food. It's not a good combination for your trip. And remember, this isn't just about the business side. This is also on the leisure. You're going on vacation somewhere and you get there and you're sick and jet lagged. It's not good for you or anybody. So drinking even more water. So a bunch before you get on the plane, at least 8 ounces per hour. And then when you get to the other side, continue. And again, with the chia seeds would be ideal, drinking water. Sodas don't count. Tea and coffee don't count. Your body wants water, not liquid. So drinking Gatorade is like reverse because you're putting in sugar, and we're going to talk about that. So filtered water is what you want. So be careful about that as well. So I've spent a little time talking about the structured aspect. The other thing that's really important for you is drinking filtered water. Do I really have to buy a filter? Well, you either buy a filter or you are the filter. And we are already filtering enough these days. So get a good filter. And when you're at the airport, you have to buy the bottled water. Some airports now have the filtered water fountains that you can fill up your bottle that you bring from home, which would be great as well. The next thing is earthing. So I talked about one of my sponsors, the Earth, and here's where that comes in. We're meant to be connected to this planet. And we have disconnected ourselves by using rubber-soled shoes. So while great for protecting our feet, they also insulate us energetically from the earth, and we are not meant to be isolated like that. And so we need to get bare feet on the earth. And if you'll do this in your destination time zone for maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes, just bare feet on the earth, it will help sink you into that time zone. Dump the static electricity from the airplane, pull in electrons that will help you to heal, but it'll sink you into that time zone. So good is standing on the earth. Even better would be wet earth. And best would be getting in the ocean if you can. So I would really encourage you to give this one a try. It may look or sound a little weird, but guess what? It's free. You know, that's the good thing about my sponsor. It's free, just like getting in the sun is free. And we're going to be talking about that in a second. But I have a picture there of my dog, Rosie, and she loves to get in the backyard. You know, the dogs, they go outside. Oh, I got to go outside. I got to go outside. And she'll go out there and just lay there. Why? Animals know that they need this, and they'll go out and ground themselves a lot and roll around on the earth because they need it, and we need it too. So think about that and get out there. It can also help reduce inflammation and provide a lot of other health benefits for free. So that's a good thing. All right, next sponsor is the sun. So we, again, have disconnected ourselves. We slather on sunscreen, we barely go outside, we're sitting under fluorescent lights, we're isolated from nature, and that's just not a good combination. So in terms of jet lag, if you can get outside, especially around noon, and look at that sun, it'll sync your body and your clock into that time zone, telling you it's noon. And one of the other things that it does is when you're looking at the sun, those rays come through your eyes, and they activate and energize a gland in your brain called the pineal that helps to make melatonin that will help you to sleep at night. So a big part of this is getting out in nature, and at the very least, go outside, stand barefoot, look at the sun. If you can get bare skin, that would be even better if you happen to be like in a beach place, because that's going to also help create this incredible vitamin called vitamin D that is made from a hormone. Comes from the sun. So it's made from cholesterol. When the UVB rays hit your skin, it actually converts it into vitamin D for dog, and something that is incredibly useful for our immune system. So sleep. Sleep is a tough one these days. It's hard, you know, just in general right now. It's hard when you travel, but because of all of our stress today, a lot of people are having trouble sleeping, and it's pretty tricky. Part of it is because of the stress on our bodies that are just kind of going on all the time. A big part of it is our brains that are going crazy. We're not meditating, we're not relaxing, and we're going to spend a little time on that. But having a routine is really helpful when it comes to sleep. And if you have a routine at home and you can take that on the road, even better. And so one of the things to think about is like when you get to your hotel room, what's the first thing you do? What is the first thing you do? Type in the chat box there. What is the first thing you do? You open that door to the hotel room and you go in, and what do you do? What's the first thing that would be a good thing to do? So type that in the chat box. So I took a picture here while you're typing that in of the Hilton Brussels City at midnight. Why am I taking a picture of the Hilton Brussels City at midnight? Well, I had gone in, I flew over from Dallas, went to London, flew to Brussels, got into the hotel, stayed up till 9 p.m. and I just crashed. And then at midnight, the alarm goes off and we had to exit the hotel. So I walked down 9 flights of stairs and walked back up 9 flights of stairs, and now I'm awake. So, you know, sometimes it doesn't even matter what you do. It's just odds are against you when it comes to these things. Do we have any insights on first thing you do, Joyce? Or what do you think?
What we see here, yeah, we've got a couple. Says yes, there is nothing like being on the ground with bare feet, putting away my things. If there's a pool or gym, I'd like to get into sometime there as part of my regular.
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the key things here, and I don't talk about it a lot. I used to have a slide on it, but people don't really like to hear about this, is when you check in your hotel room, one of the first things you should do is check for bed bugs. It's a thing. It's unfortunate, but you got to go check under the headboard or under the mattress and look for those little black dots. Make sure you don't have those. And then one of the things you'll want to do is just kind of start clearing out your room. So I'm going to spend a bit of time here talking about EMFs, electromagnetic fields, because this is a stressor on our body. When you look at the known stressors that we have that come from the foods we eat, or the water that we're drinking, or in the air that we're breathing, there's all these stressors on the body, toxins, but this is an invisible one. And a lot of people don't talk about it because it's not something you can see. But, you know, when we have these cell phones, so we have our cell phones here, which I think are kind of like the cigarettes in the 60s. It's like, I don't think they're, you know, back in the 60s, you know, cigarettes aren't good for you, but they're not killing anybody. But now we know that it does in the long range. And I think cell phones are going to be that way as well. But we really need to focus on managing those things because they are a major stressor on our body. So when you're in a hotel room, you can't really help all the Wi-Fi that's around you, but clear all the electronics from your head, for one thing. And when you go to sleep at night, think about putting your phone in airplane mode and getting that thing at least 6 feet away from you so that you can not have it interfering with your sleep, your brain waves. Your brain goes into these different kinds of sleep levels. And that's one of the things that you want to try and preserve, is staying in a place where your body has a good chance to sleep. So other things that you can do around this realm, one of the best things you can do to balance these EMFs is bare feet on the earth again. And one of the things that's interesting in that space is there is a frequency of the earth. The earth kind of has a heartbeat. This is another thing that we need to connect to, and it's called the Schumann frequency, 7.83 hertz. And it is like a metronome. And the more we stand on the earth, the more our bodies will sync with that, and it'll help to calm us down. And boy, we need that these days, I know. So that's a great thing, another reason to get on the earth. So other things, balancing EMFs, there are things you can put on your phone to help balance it. I have a thing on my phone. You can look on the internet and find these, it's hard to find the ones that work, that's the tricky part. But it's important to get those because they make the waves be more biocompatible on your body. So if you're wearing it or have it in your pocket, it'd be helpful, but keep it away from you when you're speaking on the phone. So try and put it in speakerphone and keep it here instead of next to your head if you can. And if you're at home, I would recommend, putting your router on a timer, regular old timer, and just have that thing go off at night because you don't really need it while you're sleeping. So give your body a break in that space. All right. So moving on to eating, one of our favorite activities when we travel. So I took some pictures here from different airports around and dinners and things like that. So I talked about drinking. Drinking is an awesome thing. Water, of course, filtered water, except when you're eating, because our body makes hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes to help digest your food. And when we drink a lot with our meal, it dilutes those things and it makes it more difficult to digest our food, which is going to lead to problems later when you're trying to sleep. So when you look at the different beverages in the upper left there, you've got all of the water at the bottom there, and you got all these different juices, which juice is a really good thing. But let's talk about kind of the foundations of what does our body really want? We really want the energy of the sun and the nutrition that comes from that. So since, again, the other sponsor, our body can't really just eat the energy of the sun. So what we do is we have our friends, our little plants that absorb the energy of the sun in their little plant bodies, and they convert it in photosynthesis into their leaves and fruits and vegetables and everything else that we eat. And when we eat that, we get that energy. One of the biggest challenges we have today, and I'm going to say this is probably the biggest one, is sugar, which is probably one of the worst things you can put in your body. And unfortunately, fructose that comes from fruit is still sugar, at least it's in a natural form, but we have to be careful with that. And if you look at like eating an orange, when you eat something, you're going to have the insulin, which is your body's response. Your pancreas makes this hormone called insulin that helps your body to absorb that sugar. So when I eat an orange, the insulin response looks like this, hopefully. If I drink orange juice, it skyrockets. Why is that? It's because there's no fiber when I drink the juice. So I'm just getting a straight shot of sugar, and that's not really what we want. So if you see a bar like this, there is one or two in the middle there, right in the center, the dark red one and the dark green one that might be good. I'm hoping the dark red one is beet juice, and the green one is a variety of greens. The hard part with that is that places like this, when they have to put it in bottles, they have to add things to make it sweet. So they'll add a lot of carrot juice or apple juice. But if you can find the pure greens one, that's the best one to have. And that's going to help give you the structured water form that we talked about and some good nutrition. So that would be a good thing to pick up at the airport if you're looking for things, is get one of these juicing drinks that are hopefully fresh if possible. And if you can, make your own and try and stay away from the sugar ones, which is, apples and carrots are big ones. The other one there that you see in the middle is the steak in the upper right and or the middle and the lower left. That's from Argentina when I was there. They are notorious for awesome steak. And the good and the bad of this, right? You see steak and potatoes a lot. I don't know who made up this combination, but it's really not a good thing from a digestive perspective, because your body makes hydrochloric acid to help to digest that meat. And then when you eat potatoes or any starches, it just absorbs that hydrochloric acid, and it reduces the ability of your body to digest that meat. So if you're going to eat any kinds of meats, then you want to focus on not having starchy vegetables with it. So no rice and pasta and potatoes, but instead get green leafy vegetables or other kinds of vegetables that will help your body to absorb and actually get that nutrition. The other side, of course, I just put a picture up there of the different things you can get in terms of sandwiches. I'm not a big sandwich fan because I don't eat a lot of breads, because breads are one metabolic step away from sugar. And you have to realize that, again, sugar is one of the worst things you can do, because just the more sugar you have, the more your immune system goes down. So processed carbohydrates and sweets, just not good. And remember that grains, so all the wheat and the corn and the rye and all that stuff is not so good. So sandwiches, I try and get as little as possible. So a sandwich wrap if you need to, but ideally the salads are your best bet in that space. And then of course on the lower right there, you've got the airport food or the airplane food, which you never know what you're going to get on the airplane if you're there. So bring things with you when you can. Bring bars with you or buy something. This fresh steaks that you see in the middle there of the screen at the bottom. Buy a sandwich, buy something that you can bring on the plane with you so you can know what you're going to be eating. So what do we think, Joyce? Any thoughts on questions, comments?
So far, there isn't any comments.
Okay, are people awake out there? Give me a type of yes in the chat box if you're breathing.
Okay, guys, yes. He says learned a lot about travel. So people are paying attention. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, okay, good.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you're out there. I got to go speak last week at an event here in Dallas, and I was so excited to actually speak to people and see eyes out there instead of just looking in this little camera.
Okay.
Because it's so good to connect with people, and so I miss the interaction and the feedback. Right, I'm talking here, going, is my internet connection down? You never know. That's why I try and do as much interaction as I can.
Oh, that's important, yes.
What is your favorite way to exercise while traveling? Type in the chat box. What are we doing here in the exercise realm? And then we'll talk about some of the things that you can do at home as well. And I'm happy to answer, again, questions around what we can do today to stay healthy, because it's a tricky business today. So what do we think are some favorite ways to exercise? What are the kind of things you do, Joyce?
Right now, I have a rebounder. That's my latest thing. I got myself a rebounder. For those of us who
Good.
may ask, a mini trampoline, the rebounder kind, and I bounce in the mornings. And when I go home tonight, I'll be bouncing again. That's kind of my thing. Yeah.
That's good. Now, rebounders are awesome. They help move lymph in the body. It's
Mhm.
fabulous. You jump up and down. It's an awesome thing. Do we have any other thoughts in the chat box? Favorite ways to exercise?
Like to swim, someone said, in the hotels if they have a good pool. Walks also nice depending on the area.
Perfect.
What else? And if it's not late at night, of course, you have to be careful for it, keep your safety.
Yeah.
Someone said sports.
Good. Yeah, there's, the key is to pick up the exercise where you can. So when you're at the airport, I mean, this is the shot at London Heathrow, I think, when the flight from London to Dallas is always like this it's like this thing is maybe 20-minute walk down this tunnel. It's always the furthest gate, but it's great. It gives you a chance to exercise. When you see the moving sidewalks, don't take it. When you see the escalators, don't take those, take the stairs. When you're in your hotel room, opt for a room that's around the 5th or 6th floor and take the stairs to your room every day instead of the elevator. When you go walking, as someone had mentioned, if it's not safe outside, one of the places you can always go is to a mall, and malls are almost always safe. Sometimes they have guards in there with machine guns. In Brazil, I've seen that, but you just have to, be careful. And of course, always ask the concierge or the bell person when you're leaving the hotel, is this a safe place to walk? You can always, I have gone before into the stairwell at the hotel and just run up and down the stairwell. So it's a good thing. The key thing here in general with exercise is the movement. So the best exercise is always the one that you'll do. What is it that keeps you motivated and that you want to do? So Joyce likes the rebounder. I'm not going to tell her not to do the rebounder because she's loving it. It's great. Movement. Get your hands over your head if you can. But walking, swimming, all of those things, biking. I'm a huge fan of yoga, been doing that for a long time. And I used to do Zumba and I do weights. And, we just have to do things to keep our bodies moving because that's what it wants. So remember to focus on that when you're traveling. But again, the key is sometimes we don't have time to go schedule it in. Just remember that you can choose to exercise at a variety of points in your journey. Sometimes we forget that. It's like the people that drive around in the parking lot at the health club looking for a close place to park so they can go in and exercise, which kind of defeats the purpose. But we do that, and I think I've done that too. So look at opportunities, find places to exercise, walk to dinner instead of taking a taxi or an Uber. So let's talk about staying well. And here's part of the challenge that we have is when you travel somewhere, so you go to another country and you get there and you start feeling sick. Well, one of the first things that we want to do when you start to feel sick is you've got to act quickly. And by act quickly, I mean, when you feel that first scratchy throat, I feel like I'm getting sick kind of thing, you've got about 4 to 6 hours to do something. Your body's telling you, I'm starting to get sick. You got to be ready to go. So let me tell you what you need to do. First is a don't. You want to avoid sugar, dairy, and wheat. So those 3 things knock down your immune system because of that sugar more than anything else. So the sugar, again, a half a can of soda will knock down your immune system by 50% for up to 8 hours. So your body's trying to fight something off, and you're hurting its ability to keep you healthy. I'm just gonna have a bagel and cream cheese. I'll just have some pizza and a Coke or a beer or something like that. It's not gonna work, and it's just gonna make things much worse. So avoiding sugar, dairy, and wheat. Dairy tends to cause more mucus, so would be a good idea to avoid that as well. So I talked earlier about things to have with you, a supplement. So I always have a just in case bag with me, and I always hope that I never have to use it, but I've had to before.
So John, there was one question. What should we eat instead of sugar and
what to eat instead of sugar?
Instead of pizza and bread.
Yeah, so if we're having breakfast, if you're at the breakfast buffet, eggs are good. The meats are okay. Avoiding the pastries, having the fruit. But if you're going to eat fruit, make sure that you eat it first, because when we eat fruit, it's primarily water and it digests very quickly. So eat it first, wait a few minutes, and then eat your omelets and things like that. Just because food combining really matters. I talked about the potatoes and the meat part, but that's the other one.
What if someone is vegan and they don't eat the meats?
Yeah, if they're vegan, then just eat the fruits in the morning is what you'll see at most breakfast buffets. is fruits. You can do smoothies. I'm a huge fan of, today I do coconut yogurt. Today I'm making coconut yogurt. Have you ever made coconut yogurt, Joyce?
I have made vegan yogurt, yes.
So this is my first day. It's a simple recipe, apparently. We'll see how it works. But I've got coconut milk and 2 capsules of probiotics. And I'm supposed to let it set for 2 days, and we'll see what kind of magic happens.
At the right temperature, okay?
What's the right temperature?
You can have a yogurt maker, or you can do it, some people do it in their crock pot. If you don't have the right temperature, you could grow the wrong bacteria.
Oh, how warm does it need to be?
Google, I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, but I digress. But anyway, yes, so there are other options from, things that we can have in the morning. The key is to avoid the sugars and the grains, and a lot of breakfast foods have them. Even oats, unfortunately. If you have to, oats is okay, but it's still a grain. And so try and focus in on more of the things that grow. It's okay to eat salad too. It's okay to eat, beans or olives or things like that. In Europe, you'll see that for breakfast a lot. So the key is to get these things in as quickly as possible. So the other thing is, if you don't have these supplements, and I also bring things with me. Again, I'll have pills like echinacea or Palo d'Arco tea or andrographis supplements. There's a bunch of herbs that are really immune system boosting and critter killers. And one of the big ones is garlic. So if you don't have anything and you didn't bring anything with you, just go to the restaurant and get a clove of garlic and suck on that clove of garlic. And you won't smell good, but it will knock out a lot of things. So just sucking on that or chewing on a clove of garlic can really help knock most things out. And as I talked about exercising, before, when you feel like you're getting sick, you don't want to be doing that. So what you want to be doing in that case is resting. And so instead of taking the walking, take the walkway, take the elevator, sleep, take the taxis when you can. Just do what you can to help your body to put all of the energy and divert from eating a lot and from exercising, take all that energy into fighting off whatever your body needs to get rid of it. So that's a big part of it. So just to kind of summarize here, and I might have a few others here, is I talked about stress and fear reduction because those things knock down your immune system. Water we talked about. Intermittent fasting is something else. It takes a lot of energy to digest food. And so when we're digesting big meals, it doesn't have a lot of time and energy to do other things. So if we can eat in a smaller window, and that's what intermittent fasting is really eating in a smaller, maybe 6-hour window. So eat lunch around 12 or 1, eat dinner around 6 or so, and don't eat again until 12 or 1 the next day. And if you can do this when you're traveling, you'll save a meal and it will also help your body. But again, when you're starting to feel sick, it's definitely a good thing to think about. And we talked about exercise and movement in the prevention category. So the next part here is the action. When we talked about getting quickly the rest, and here's some other supplements on the page for you that you might be interested in that space as well. So staying well is a really, really key thing, especially these days. And traveling just makes it harder because of all the stressors on us. But even today, we're in a place that's really difficult. Now, I know a lot of people are really wrestling these days with a lot of other issues because, our body is not just physical. There's really 4 bodies that we have. We really have the physical, the emotional, the mental body, and the spiritual body. And so I'm going to spend a bit of time on the emotional and the spiritual mental side here, just talking about what I call this pandemic retreat that I never signed up for. This has been quite a year, and that's a whole other presentation to talk about resilience for so many of us and maybe some things, but I'm going to share a few of the lessons that I've learned. But before I go into that, are there any other questions or thoughts, Joyce? All clear?
I didn't see any. Well, with this one here, it says, how do you get proper guidance regarding intermittent fasting? I saw an episode on Netflix on that suggests that it's beneficial. It can be very unhealthy. While it's beneficial, it can be very unhealthy.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard about very unhealthy. I mean, everybody's different. And so like for me, I can't do fasting. Intermittent fasting seems to work for me. I don't do it all the time, but there's a ton of information. One of the guys that I really follow is Eric Berg, ERIC, B-E-R-G, Eric Berg. You can look up his videos, and he talks a lot about intermittent fasting and the best ways to do it. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. So there's an interesting story that I just heard about this picture of peace. So a wealthy man asked this artist to draw him a painting of peace. And so the artist went back to his room and he thought about it, and he drew this beautiful countryside with the cows that are eating in the fields and the village down the street and blue skies and trees all over the place, and it was peaceful. So he took it to the man and then he looked at it. This really isn't peace. Go try again. So the artist was like, wow, really? So he goes back to his studio and he's thinking some more. Gosh, so he draws a picture of a mother holding her baby and looking into the baby's eyes, and the baby's looking back at her. And surely this has captured what really peace is about. And he took it back to him and he showed him and he went, it's close, but this isn't peace. Go try again. And so he went back and he was kind of down because of he's just not getting this, what this guy's looking for. But he goes inside and kind of prays on it, and he has an idea and he starts drawing and he takes it back to the man, and the man looks at it and goes, this is it. This is peace. And what he drew in that was a picture of a storm and a bird that was sitting in a nest looking out at this storm and just watching it go by. And so for many of us today, it is quite a storm, some more than others, but I think all of us are having a challenge in our own way. Are you the bird that's sitting in the storm? Because true peace comes when things aren't going so well. And this is something that we're all having to deal with today and having to go inside. And so I'm just kind of doing a quick aside because this is relevant to your mindset when you travel as well, but especially for today. And so I created kind of the top 3 things that I just want to share with you, some of the lessons that I've learned in this storm and massive transformation in my world. The first one is just trusting this perfection of life, which is so easy to say, but man, I'm getting this at so many levels today. It's just trusting and knowing, I don't know where we're headed, but I don't need to know. I just have to trust that it's all headed in the right direction. And I know that that's really important. One of the things that happened as a professional speaker is that, my business kind of went away when there's no events. There's not a lot of speaking, and now we're starting to morph into more of these. But back in March, April, it wasn't looking good. And I've got 2 kids in college, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And the key question for me became, what is my value? Who am I? And it's understanding that you're more than your role, more than your title, that you're way, way, way more than that. In fact, the statement is, I am enough as I am right now. And it's so key to live that. So for a lot of people that have lost their jobs or are struggling with so many things, who are you and what is your identity? You have to realize that you're enough as you are right now. And that's a big lesson to learn. The other one, and is a big one I'm still working on, is managing thoughts and the words that you speak. And so whenever I think about this and talk about this, the words that you're saying in your head are really powerful. And when you speak them, they become even more powerful. So I don't like, the words that you want to think about, whenever follows I am, is really powerful. So when you say I am blank, be careful what follows that. I am happy, I'm joyful, I'm peaceful, I'm grateful. Focus on the positive words and not the negatives, because that's what you put out and will create in your world. And so for many of us, these are just lessons that we have to learn to notice the thoughts and realize that you're not the thoughts. Let them move through. Let them move through and focus in on the true self of who you really are and manage those things. So we have talked about a bunch of different things today. We hit balancing. We talked about jet lag and sleeping and eating smart and exercising. We talked a little bit about the mental side of things. I'm interested to hear, what changes will you make as a result of what we've done today? Type in the chat box one thing that you might do differently, either at home or when you get to travel or are traveling. You might be traveling right now. What are some of the changes that you make? And I mentioned to start doing it now before your next trip. So if you're not traveling, is if you don't drink a lot of water, this is a time to start drinking. Because once you start drinking, you're going to be going to the bathroom a lot. Your body's not used to it. So it's good to start before you have to get on the road and get going with that. So what do we have for thoughts, Joyce? What are some things that people have learned today that we might do a little bit different? We're quiet.
Sorry, so chia seed in my water
Okay.
to improve hydration was a thought. And remember 2-to-1 breathing. Yeah.
Perfect. So exhaling longer than the inhale to help calm things down and move that for you. So one of the people ask me, so you've been to a lot of different places, John. What's your favorite place? So one of them is, I have a lot, but one of them was New Zealand. I love going to New Zealand, love the Kiwis and the beautiful nature. It's just a laid back place. And I remember I was there for 10, 11 days. And I remember when I was coming back home and I left that hotel, going to the airport. It's like a 45-minute drive. Got to get there early for your international flight. There's like one a day. So I'm in the taxi or the Uber driving back from the airport or to the airport, and I'm just thinking about, wow, what a wonderful trip and a beautiful place and all those kind of things. As soon as we pulled into that airport, my stomach just sank, and I'm like, oh my God, my passport is sitting in the safe in my hotel room. Take a deep breath with me. I know that was, many of us have done things like that. So I'm freaking out. And luckily, no worries, mate. The Kiwis are good. They, hey, I'll borrow his phone, called the hotel. They went upstairs, got my passport out. He called one of his mates, drove to the passport or drove to the hotel and picked it up. And I got to sit at the airport for 45 minutes to an hour waiting for a taxi Uber to show up with my passport and an opportunity to practice breathing and all the things that I talk about. So it was quite stressful, and I learned the hard way how to calm down in this situation and let it be and trust. And now I always put one shoe in the safe if I put anything in the safe, just to make sure I don't forget anything going forward. So Joyce, with that, I'm going to wrap up and mention again, here's my insight to help connect and get information. I got some resources out there. If you go to kiwilive.com and type in the word travel. Are there any other questions about traveling and health, natural health, where we are?
Well,
you've got so many awesome speakers in your summit here that you cover a lot.
What to eat when you start to feel unwell? No bread, no sugar. Like is someone traveling and they're starting to feel unwell?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, nothing would be a good choice. If you can avoid it, not eating would be good, because it allows your body to divert that energy over to healing. So if you're starving and you need to eat, then vegetables, green leafy ones would be your best bet. Salads, cooked vegetables, maybe some soups that don't have a lot of sugar or dairy in them. Those are going to be your best bets. Spices are always good. So things with curry in them, garlic.
Turmeric, I guess.
Turmeric. Yeah, turmeric is curry. Yeah. Very important, very powerful to do that. So yeah, those are the main things. And in fact, you really ought to try and eat that way whenever you can. Nuts and seeds are good. Walnuts and almonds and pecans, not peanuts. Peanuts really are not nuts. They're lentils, and they're really not so good for us because of the fungal component.
I love my nuts, but they don't love me. I love almonds and stuff. So I do a little bit of walnuts and pecans, but I can't seem to do very much nuts. Well, I had to give up peanuts. Yeah, you're right. It's very hard to digest.
It's tough. You know what? But my favorite fruit that most people don't think of is avocados. I love avocados.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Favorite fruit. So I get a lot of those. And now it's pomegranate season. Do you have pomegranates up there?
We don't grow pomegranates in Winnipeg. We're way too cold for that, John.
Yeah, but you got it shipped in. I don't know if we grow.
Oh yeah, they come in the stores, but yeah,
sure.
That's
good though. But yeah, pomegranates are awesome, and yeah, coconuts. I love coconuts.
Oh yes, coconut. I'm a Caribbean girl. We do coconut. Everything coconut.
I love it. I love
coconut and castor oil. Those are stay home.
Excellent.
Those are definitely things that we always have in our closets. I usually travel with my tea tree oil.
Yes, tea tree oil is a great one. Very, very powerful. And yeah, because it's Melaleuca, right? Melaleuca is tea tree oil. So yeah, essential oils. I have some blends from Young Living, Thieves, and Digize that I'm never without. So I always use those as well. Travel with them.
Okay.
What other thoughts or questions? Anyone else have any questions?
I was looking here and I don't see any other question. What is the question you get commonly asked, John?
What is a question I get commonly asked? How did we get here? Let's see. Why do we not hear more about this information, Joyce? And it's really because of where this all started long ago. In 1911 with a historical note, something called the Flexner Report. Have you heard of that? Did we talk about that, Flexner Report? It's where it all started in the US, is where they had commissioned a guy named Abraham Flexner to go look at all the medical schools and standardize in the country. And they tried, which is a great idea, but then they took all the homeopathic and acupuncture schools and things like that, and it wasn't acupuncture, but energetic schools, homeopathy, and shut them down in lieu of the drugs and surgery model that we have today.
Yes, of course.
And that was the beginnings of where we are today. So that's a question I get about. I don't know if I have any others for today.
So, I mean, we have seen, you know, as humans, we've learned and we unlearn, and then we learn again, and then we move back. But I think what we see now is there is a much broader acceptance of homeopathic remedy and natural remedies. I think more people are recognizing the benefits of those and having them bringing them into their lifestyle.
Right.
But what are some cautions you have for people? Is there anything that they can overdo or do too much of?
We can overdo everything because we always believe that if I have a little bit, then a lot will be better, including water. You know, when I first started, I was drinking way too much water, and you take out all your minerals and then you don't feel good. So you want to do everything in moderation, of course. And so we can overdo it by taking too many supplements. And there are certain ones, of course, that can be toxic if you take tons and tons of them, but most things are fairly well modulated in your body. So that would be one of the biggest ones, is you know, being careful with the water that you're drinking. And again, the filtering and the toxicity that we have in our environment is something to really be aware of and careful of. Is
drinking too much water. Did anybody have a question on that? Did you know you could drink too much water?
Well, we hear about these things called electrolytes. You know, when you sweat too much as an athlete, then you start to have cramps, and that's because you're losing your electrolytes, which are the minerals. And so that's why we used to have salt tablets. Now you have people drinking Gatorade, which has those. And the electrolytes are potassium, magnesium, calcium. They're all the minerals that help conduct electricity in our body. And so when you sweat a lot, you lose all of those. Same thing when you drink too much, is you're diluting just a little too much. So, you know, one way to look at it is to look at your urine and see if it's clear. If it's clear, you might be drinking too much. If it's light yellow, that's kind of where you want to be. If it's dark yellow, then you're definitely dehydrated. And it can be oranges if you're, you know, having a lot of B vitamins, because those come out that way as orange.
So how does one make their own electrolytes?
Well, you can buy these different, of course, the best way is getting it through food, because that's where we get our minerals. That's how we alkalize, is through the vegetables, especially the greens and the green leafy ones. But you can make your own electrolytes or your drink by, you know, getting these powdered drinks that don't have a lot of sugar in them, like Emergencies can be pretty good, or things like that. And so you can just put those in your water and bring those with you when you're traveling, along with the chia seeds, and they can be very helpful. Just get those minerals in.
All right. Wow. Lots of information.
Lots of information.
You guys, you are going to learn how to take care of yourself today. Today we were focusing on self-care and leadership and resilience, and it has just been some powerful presentations. John, yours was so full of information and little nuggets and things that we could actually access right away and put into practice. So this is really, really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joyce. Thanks for having me on the summit, and I look forward to connecting with folks.
Absolutely. We'll be reaching out to you for a handout that we will put in the package. We like to give people something to hold. So we'll send that out as well. And we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, everyone, we are going to take a few minutes break and get ready for our next presentation. So as we prepare for our next presentation, we are going to hear from John Levitt, who is the Chief Burnout Specialist. I think you're going to enjoy that. And John comes on at Pardon me, Michael Levitt. What am I saying? I'm renaming people now. Anyway, we just had John. Now we're going to listen to Michael Levitt at 2:45. So right now it's 2:28, and we're just going to do a commercial break, and then we're going to come back on with Michael. And I don't see him in here. So he should be joining us soon. But in the meantime, we're going to do a commercial break and bathroom breaks. Get your water, and if you have chia seed, put them in here. I try to drink this every day. It tells me what time of the day. So by 5 p.m. I should be here, and by 6 p.m. I should be down here. So I love that, because when I look at it, I was like, oh, what time is it? I need to get my water in. So it really keeps me on track. And lots of things we can do. Antoinette, welcome. Good to see you. We've had some powerful, if you miss any of the sessions today, guys, please do go on to the YouTube where we're streaming. You can get that link right off our website and our homepage. You will see some of the streams are there, and there's a click on the homepage to take you to a YouTube channel where you can access the recordings. I was saying to my husband, I was like, oh, I'm so focused on the workplace, but a lot of these are things that people can do in their own personal lives. And so if you have family members, I know I'm going to send my sister-in-law on here and my aunts on the YouTube channel this week, and I'm going to say, go and feed, because the recordings will be moved into our passes later on next week. So if you have friends and family that you think would benefit from any of those, send them to the YouTube channel this week. They can see all the recordings for free there before they're moved over. So off we go to commercial break, and we will be back in 15 minutes. going to give it. Looks like Kanta is here. Kanta. Wait, you said it here? Who?
Say play again.
It doesn't matter what you do or where you are in your life, you are going to go through or encounter obstacles, right? It's just part of life. And so we have to remember that in everything we do, that there are going to be challenges. What you do or where you are, are we having a feedback? You are going to go through or encounter obstacles, right? It's just part of life. Okay, so we're having some feedback. Let me see. And so we have to remember that in everything we do, that there are going to be challenges. You are going to go or encounter obstacles, right? It's just part of life. Okay, so we're having some feedback. Let me see. And so we have to remember that in everything we do, that there are going to be challenges. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Hello? This, I'm not quite sure where that's coming from. I am hearing something. I'm like, where is it coming from? Found the culprit. Okay. You're like, what's going on? I'm hearing an echo. Where is it coming from? Okay, we were just watching the YouTube channel live feed and it was still playing. So we were having this feedback and we're like, oh, where is it coming from? I'm running over here, we're looking over there. So I want to just talk about overcoming obstacles. It doesn't matter what you do, where you are in life, and what you are facing or try to do, you are going to have obstacles. And part of dealing with life is dealing with life obstacles. You cannot be alive and not have challenges and not have obstacles. It's just not real. You have to deal with them. In this morning, and so if you're just joining us and you're back here, you're wondering who we are, my name is Joyce Odidison, and we are just getting back from our break at the Global Workplace Wellness Summit. This is our day 3 of day 4 of 3 days of amazing summit speakers. This was a marathon and we're almost to the finish line. So we did it and we made it. Those of you who've been here and been to as many sessions as possible, I know I loved them all. I didn't want to miss any. I haven't missed any, and it was just unbelievable. I'm very, very thrilled with all of the speakers. So this morning we started with Dr. Joseph Maroon, and he was, oh my goodness, for those of you in the chat who were here for his speech, do you want to just put a hands up if you were here and you heard his presentation? My goodness, I was so impressed. So many nuggets, so many things. When you're successful, don't fly too high and don't fly too low. Just keep, just maintain that moderate balance when you're successful, because too high, your wings can get clipped, and too low, you will not be noticed. It was just like, wow, I loved it all. And then Patience was with us. She had more time with us this morning, and we learned how to detox our liver. I mean, the liver is the detoxification system in our body, and we get to learn how to detox our liver and our gallbladder, and it was just amazing. I felt rejuvenated after that. And then we had Renee Moorfield sharing with the Leader Wellbeing Program. So key, so many nuggets for leaders and those of us who work with leaders, train leaders, or is part of the leadership program in various organizations, tons and tons of tips on how to do that. Then we had Anna Billion, and Anna was absolutely great at leading us through and helping us to learn about some of the pieces that, that's impacting leadership in the organization. And as we do that, we learn so many. She shared some tips and books, and Anna has a great podcast as well. It was just amazing, her presentation. And then we went to ethics. Jonathan Golson wasn't he brilliant? I have so many notes. I have discipline. It says ethics is the discipline of recognizing and taking responsibility for the impact of your action on others. Ethics begins where compliance ends. So rich, so rich. I hope you got some of that. So as I was saying before the break, if you came here and you didn't know what to expect from the summit and you were not sure, or and you're like, wow, you felt hooked and you wanted to say, well, welcome. Um, the light up was great. And if you have family members that you think, or relatives or colleagues that you think should, we are going to leave the recordings up in the Summit YouTube channel. So go to our homepage and click on our homepage, and you will get the link to our YouTube channel where all the recordings are going to be for a few days. Right now, my recording engineer is going to be working on them full swing, and then they're going to be removed from the YouTube channel. So please, if you want to see them, go and do that now. Well, not now. I mean this weekend, in the next few days, and then you will have access. So feel free to share, forward, invite people. Just share the link, share to the various topics. So those in your network can have access, because I learned a lot this week. There were so many things, and I am a nut when it comes to health. I'm into everything. If there's a book you tell me, or self-help, I will be checking it out. So I learned so much this weekend. So I'm sure everyone here has. Then we had John Ayo, and John was talking about what happens when we start traveling again. And it may be that you're just going on vacation, right? Or you may be just going to do something for work, or traveling for work, if not on vacation. How do you take care of yourself? But most importantly, how do we stay nutritionally well? And he gave us great tips. And then we were supposed to have a presentation by Michael Levitt, who is our chief burnout specialist, but Michael isn't here. So we are going to be, and then we had 3 speakers coming up after. So we had Fernando Flores was coming up, and we could have asked to switch, but he isn't here either. Nor is John Toomey, because he's not scheduled till 7 p.m. So we're going to just take some time now and do some reflections on what you've taken away for the day, and maybe we will see if they join us. One or the other of them joins us, and then we will whoever joins first will be our speaker, and then we will go from there. But this time, I want you to write one word in the chat. I'm going to get my phone here so we can do that. One word in the chat that summarizes what you take away from Dr. Maroon this morning. How many of you were here with Dr. Maroon? Are you guys here, or are you asleep? I think John was asking that questions. Are you guys here, or are you asleep? I'm certain the chat is quiet. Both your accounts have my so who is What did you take from Renee Moorfield? Oh, who loved Patience this morning? Were you here for that? The liver cleanse? So type in the chat, when did you come on? Did you get any of the morning sessions? Or did you just get the afternoon ones? All right. So what about you, Amelia? Which sessions did you appreciate this morning? I think I saw you here most of the morning.
Hi, Joyce. Yes, I was in for most of the morning. I really appreciated the ethics presentation, as well as not just appreciate. I came in at the beginning of the ethics presentation. That's not true. I came in at the end of the lady that presented before the ethics presentation, so I didn't catch very much of hers. But I love the ethics presentation, and the traveling tips was really great. I found both of those to be really applicable. So that was really great sitting in on those ones.
Yeah, those were really good. Who was here for the morning presentation? Cheryl, when did you come on? I think I saw Cheryl here earlier. I'm just going to scroll and see who were making comments this morning. None. Okay. The ethics presentation, that was Yonason. I keep with my accent. We pronounce the yo. And this was great. Well, tell you what, we are going to pause because I did not prepare anything to replace speakers not coming. So let's resume at 2:45 when we will be hearing, actually no, not 2:45, at 3:45. And I'm going to, yeah, let's resume at 3:45 and then we will go from there. Thank you.